Hi and welcome to Spill the Tea with LLIB. I'm Cal.
And I'm Claire.
And together we founded the incredible platform that is Leading Ladies in Business, a platform that inspires and supports female business women across the globe. In this episode of Spill the Tea with LLIB, we're joined by Lyann Farrelly, a visionary leader and advocate for fellow business leaders. With her extensive experience and expertise, she has not only achieved remarkable success in her own career, but also dedicates her time and energy to empower and uplift others in the business world.
So Lyann, spill the tea on what the journey in business has been like for you so far.
Well, started my business in 2021, so I'm still fairly new to that, sort of owning my business. So I started Thursday's Child Coaching and Consulting. I decided to turn my life upside down in 2020 during the pandemic.
As we do.
As we do.
Lots of people do.
Yeah, I think that it seems to be a theme, doesn't it? So I was living and working in LA at the time. I had a 6-figure salary. I was an executive at Warner Brothers Studios.
Wow.
And I decided to leave, come back to the UK, go back to school, train and get qualifications in something I've been doing for about 20 years, but never actually got the qualifications, and then set up my own coaching and consultancy. So that was just a bit crazy, really. Now I look back on it. Yeah. But at the time, it just felt like it was the natural thing to do. Difficult, but it felt like I've been waiting to do it for a long time.
Yeah. How did everybody else react to that change? Because that's a pretty big.
It was a big
turning upside down.
Yeah, people were surprised. I think my family were really surprised. My sort of broader family, the conversations inside with my husband and my 2 kids, that had been happening for months. This wasn't just something I decided on my own. I couldn't, my husband had a life there, my kids had lives there. They were just about to become teenagers. And I think the biggest prompt for us moving back when we did, and doing it quickly, was we realised that if we were moving back to the UK, my then 13-year-old would need to get back to school to understand what GCSEs were, take his options. He's just now finished his GCSEs. And we thought if we leave it any longer, he's not going to have that time to turn it around and really focus. So inside, my husband and my 2 kids, we were all aligned and had talked about it. A lot of things happened in America to help us make that decision. All of them were very positive. But it was a very positive decision in the end. It was, we're going back home, we're going back to be closer to my family. And at the time, I wasn't sure how soon I'd set up my own business. I knew it was in my plan. But with the pandemic, and they asked me to keep my role as it was if I did move back to the UK.
Wow.
I know. They were great. It was a great opportunity, but I had a team in LA, a team in Atlanta, a team in New York, and I was based in the UK. And I just couldn't do it. It was just too much with the move, living at home with my mum and dad.
So you moved back in with your parents?
Moved back in with my parents at the age of 43, I think at the time, or 44.
With 2 children
with
and
2
husband.
teenagers, or almost teenagers, and a teenager, a husband.
Wow.
2 dogs went to my sister's, but the cat came with us. So
Wow.
I know.
Favouritised the
What
cat.
a move.
It was quite a move.
That's
What a
huge.
move. And what a risk as well. What were you weighing up at that time, when you at that borderline? Because I think lots of people spend a lot of time, don't they, thinking about leaving a full-time job and then what that looks like afterwards, and just taking that step and that risk. It's huge, isn't it? All those what ifs. What was that like?
I think it's never I don't think anyone just makes an automatic decision. It feels like it at the time, and it did feel like an overnight decision in terms of leaving my job, but it had been building up for some time. I think the decision to come back to the UK, initially, the reason I went out to LA was because I said to my then boss that I wanted to set up my own business. And she said to me, rather than do that, what if we gave you an opportunity out in LA to lead learning and development there? And I was like, okay, let's do that then. And so it put on hold what I'd already wanted to do. So I think it was always in the background, in my sort of in my dreams, I guess, that I wanted to do this. But weighing it up in terms of the business or leaving America.
Both, I suppose.
Both. So America, the biggest, this might get a little bit deep, but I don't know if you want to go
We like,
there, but
definitely.
you do like deep? Okay. So there was a school shooting, about a mile from my kid's school. He went on lockdown. We didn't know what was happening. We didn't know where the shooter was. There were, I think, 3 children that were killed, 4 including the shooter, who was a child himself.
God.
And we'd struggled with some of the politics and gun control conversations out there, because I think my husband and I are fairly liberal, and we were in a fairly sort of conservative environment. Well, I say that, they were almost like very pro guns, you know, and so we'd struggled with that when that happened. And we were so frightened and saw what it did to the community. And the narrative afterwards was sort of, you know, no sort of conversation about gun control. It was about arming teachers, bulletproof backpacks.
Wow.
And Glenn and I just couldn't get on board with that. We didn't feel comfortable. At one point, Glenn was asked to write a letter to our youngest son in the case of another lockdown, that he could be given a letter. And my husband said that was it. That was the final straw for him. He was like, I'm done. We're done. Yeah. So that was one of the biggest, you know. I would also say the working culture out there is very different. And so essentially it led to me burning out. I think it was the sort of the accumulation of working, you know, the hours that I worked, they don't really do holidays as much, you know. I got 15 days a year and I was lucky. Wow. You know, that was the kind, and if you took 2 weeks in a row, I can remember one of my bosses saying, well, if you can take 2 weeks off, are you really needed in your role?
Oh my word.
I know. It's very, very different.
Please don't ever say that to me.
And we think, well, you know, please.
And it just didn't, you know, everything I know about being a leadership coach and everything I know about human behavior and what I know it takes to be successful is, you know, I know that we need well-being. I know we need rest. I know we need recuperation. And, you know, I'm coaching leaders and telling leaders, this is what you need to build for yourself and also for the people in your organization. But it wasn't, the values weren't quite aligning with the culture that I was experiencing. And there's nothing wrong with that culture. It's just not what I was used to, was comfortable with. So everything was saying to us, go home, go home, where it feels more like I can be my real self and feel like what I'm saying has integrity, because I'm not saying one thing, but the organization sort of doing something else, or the culture doing something else.
So how quickly was it then, after coming back, that Thursday's child was born?
Pretty quick. So I think I'd resigned in the, I think it was the August, I think it was the August. And of course, it's only 2 weeks notice out there, so it's very quick.
Well, you're not needed, are you? They can replace you within 2 weeks. You don't need 2 weeks holidays, and you weren't doing that great a job in the first place, actually, for your 6 figures.
I know, apparently. So I think that was the August, went back to school, and I launched Thursday's Child in the April. So I was still sort of finishing my post-grad in coaching at the time I started the business. Yeah.
That's incredible.
And did the name come because you are a Thursday's child?
I am a Thursday's child. And my mum, actually, initially I was going to call it Metamorphosis, because I'm a bit of we talked about history, I'm a bit of a classics geek. And Ovid's Metamorphosis, the idea of change and renewal and growth and all this kind of stuff. But I came home and I was sitting in the car with my mum and my 2 sisters, and my mum had always said, oh, you're a Thursday's child. And when I told them I was going to America, she said, I knew it. I said, as soon as you were born, I said, she's got far to go.
Yeah.
I said, I knew you'd do this. I knew you'd go far. And so it became a bit of a family kind of thing, you know. Oh, well, Leanne's a Thursday's child. Of course, she's going to go to London, because I grew up in Wrexham, go to London, then go to LA. Like, she's just going to do that. And so when I was talking to my sister about this and saying, you know, it's like I feel like everybody can go far. And I think that everyone has the potential to be the best version of themselves. Like, I 100% believe that, everybody. And it's a privilege, actually, to help people on that journey. I love what I do in that way. And seeing people just come alive and go, it was almost like Wizard of Oz when Dorothy says, you know, I had the power the whole time. It's that, right? You know, it's that. Yes, exactly. It's within you. And so Ria just said to me, my sister, she said, oh, well, Thursday's child, you've got far to go. And I went, that is perfect. So it didn't actually come from me, it came from my sister, but it's a bit of a family myth. And then I realised, because you can do that calculator, both my children were born on Thursday too.
Wow.
Yeah.
Definitely meant to. I've got 2 Wednesdays.
Well, there you go.
What's the matter with Wednesdays,
full
Kat?
of woe.
Full of woe, apparently.
Wednesday's
Which is
child
why
is
you've got
full of
Wednesday
woe.
from Wednesday Addams.
Yeah. I mean, they're great kids. We won't go there with the kids, but 2 Wednesdays and a
another
Monday.
podcast.
Yeah.
I know, we've had chats. I know.
Oh, I don't know what day I was born.
Oh, you can
there we
find
go.
out. Put your
Find
date
out.
in.
To find
Yeah,
out.
I was
Find out
Monday.
today.
Monday's child is loving and giving.
Oh,
Yeah.
There you go.
And now.
I thought you were fair of face.
Monday's child. Oh, it is, isn't it?
Yeah,
Fair
Monday's
face?
child is fair of face.
Well, I wouldn't go there. I'll go with loving and giving, but fair of face, it takes a lot of work.
I don't believe it.
So what's the hardest challenge you've had to overcome then in your business? And have you got any advice for our listeners on how you got through that?
Oh, gosh. The hardest thing, I think, is, especially if you've sort of grown up in corporate environments and team environments, is actually just being on your own. And for so many reasons, like, I don't think anything I've ever done has not had the influence of someone or had the support of someone. Like, no one is doing anything on their own, really. And so I think there's something about just feeling lonely. And when you've got a decision to make or you want to do something, like you turn to your right and your left and there's just nobody there. And my husband is great, but he's not really there. But when you're used to working with other professionals in your field, for example, and you just want to get another professional opinion, it's like, and I've got a great network of friends, but it's not quite the same. So I think that the kind of being on your own and being lonely is really difficult for so many reasons. And I think finding your tribe, finding people who get you, understand you, and, can support you is just like gold dust. It really is, because it's the difference between feeling like you want to get up in the morning and go to work, or don't really know what to focus on today. That self-motivation is quite difficult.
Yeah. I think that is definitely one of the hardest things that comes out of being a solopreneur or a woman in business, is that we've chosen the hours that we work and the flexibility and the roles that we do, but equally I think there's some sort of safety net in having systems and process in place, isn't there? And knowing that some of the decisions that you make are forced by somebody higher up than you, maybe, so there's not a decision to make. Where every day when you're in your own business there's decisions to make, and what does that look like if I do that? And so there can be an awful lot of procrastination, can't there, and self-doubt that creeps in. Well, if we do this might happen, but if it looks like this, then this might happen, and it could look like that, because you're designing something that you're really passionate about. So I think we have that a lot, don't we?
Yeah,
The needing to be surrounded by a great community.
Yeah, and women tend to be more sort of, they find collaboration more natural. As more of a kind of, there's a sort of a gender bias there, or a gender split there, where women do tend to collaborate more, or find that more effective way to generate ideas and to be in that space. So it's, the advice I'd say is find your tribe.
Yeah, absolutely. So what goals are you pursuing right now in business or personal life that you can share with us?
So learning-wise, I'm fascinated by neuroscience and how that supports the work that I've been doing, and some of the theories that have been intuitively or through observational science have sort of bore fruit, and you sort of, okay, and then neuroscience comes in and goes, that's a load of rubbish, or that's actually very true. So I'm really fascinated in bringing the science to what I do. So it's not just about pseudopsychology, or, there's some real sort of strength and depth of credibility to the coaching community, because there are a lot of coaches out there, And I think there's a lot of very good coaches out there. And I think those good coaches are the ones that really know their business. They know what it is. They understand psychology. They understand human behavior. So I've got a real passion, I guess, about really sort of credentializing the coaching industry.
Yeah.
So that's one of my goals. From a business perspective, my mission, as it's all over my website, is to make leadership accessible to everybody. And I've been thinking about ways I can do that, because so many people, leadership isn't a job title. I mean, people kind of get that, but I think I have a lot of people who I work with even now who are saying, well, I want to make VP or I want to make president, and then I'll be a leader, rather than, well, you're a leader now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Leadership's not a verb, it's an adjective. It's something you do. It's something you do every single day, and it's who you are, it's what you believe in, it's the thing that drives you, and that's why people follow you. Not because you've got a job title, but because you really truly believe in something.
Yeah.
And there are so many people out there who don't see themselves as leaders, and they are.
Yeah.
So that is another big goal of mine.
It's so funny you saying that, because obviously our platform is leading ladies in business, but we don't really, I think we do in a sense of leadership, like we can guide people, but I don't think we have that, like the ego side of I am the leader type of thing, like warrior style, going out into battle type of thing. How do you look into leading ladies? Like what do you see in terms of our leading ladies in business? Like do you see the platform as all of the community leading one another? Like can you see that?
Absolutely, which is why I wanted to be involved in how I feel I find my tribe. When I talk about find your tribe, I feel like that's what happened. I think, leading, I think that's one of the things where a lot of people get put off leadership. In fact, I heard somebody say that once that the people we want in leadership don't want any part of it because they don't want to lose that kind of sort of integrity. And
that's interesting.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And there's different types of it. So there isn't one type of leader. There isn't a one size fits all. You can be a good leader in one particular situation and then find yourself in another and do exactly the same thing and it just not work.
Yeah.
That's so true.
So it's, it's really, this is where, I've developed a leadership development program that I'm launching in autumn. And the concept behind it is coaching based rather than training based, because there's over like 15,000 books on leadership.
Wow.
No one's cracked it. No one's gone, this is what good leadership is. And that's because there is no good.
No.
There are things that will work in certain circumstances. And there's certain parts of you as a person, as an individual, there are strengths that you bring and there are areas that you need to grow. I think the core essence of a good leader is understanding yourself and understanding your capability and being willing to grow and learn. And so I think that what I see in leading ladies is a community of people who get this sort of the side of leadership that isn't often, hasn't always got a light shone on it, which is inspiring and motivating other people, believing in the strengths of other people, women in this particular instance, where traditionally women are not always given the platform or the illumination that they deserve. We have imposter syndrome, which isn't actually a syndrome. When that language, I've just read a post by a colleague the other day, that language is actually problematic because it isn't a syndrome. It's a phenomenon. And that phenomenon is basically organizations are doubling down on it because I get organizations approaching me saying, we need you to work with this female executive because we think she has imposter syndrome. The person doesn't have a syndrome. What's happening is your structures, your environment, your organization is not giving them the ability to shine.
Yeah.
That's the problem. And so you're almost placing the blame on a group of people saying, oh, it's because you feel like an imposter. It's like, no, it's because I'm treated like an imposter.
And I think as well for women in particular who are juggling many roles and wearing many hats, there's that when you're placed in a system, a traditional system, the imposter syndrome creeps in quicker because you're how can I be good at my job and do the X amount of other things that I've got to do to make this world run smoothly as well. And how we get that balance is really difficult. So when we're placed in a work scenario, we want to do that to the best of our ability. However, you can't mentally switch off that other bit of you that's got to be, the more thinking about, right, when they come home, that's got to be there for tea, or that's got to look like this, or, I don't know how I'm going to fit that date in with a friend or with my husband, or there's that whole other world. And so we're placed in this world in work where the systems and routines don't necessarily suit us. So you do feel like you can't do a good job there.
Exactly.
Or a good job over here either.
Yeah, absolutely. You're always torn. And if you are able to overcome that, or childcare isn't in your world, or I had a stay-at-home husband and I had the luxury of having him deal with a lot of that stuff, you then faced with, well, if I come across too challenging, I'm a bitch.
Yeah.
If I'm too kind, I'm too soft. There's always extremities when it comes to women's behaviour.
Yeah.
There's never just, oh, you just are, or you're just having a bad day.
No.
It's like the extremities that you deal with, or the perception is so much harder to navigate, even without all of the stuff you just talked about.
Yeah.
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 Crazy.
God, we're amazing, aren't we?
We really are. Yeah.
I know. I think as well, when we look at leadership and there's that real thing of leadership and management, and the debate between those two, isn't there? To manage is completely different than to lead. And I think that's where, again, there's that language barrier, or that misnomer around what each of those are, because you can be a good manager but not lead people well.
Yeah.
You can manage people well, but you don't lead them. And I think that's where, when people have written these thousands and thousands of books, it also depends on the community that you are leading as well. What makes a good leader in one sense for one community will not make a good leader for a different community, because they need something different and they're following for a different reason.
Absolutely. And my role as a coach is to help someone understand, is this something that I need to deal with? Is this something that I can flex to? Is this a part of me that I can learn and grow, or even potentially compromise on, or is this not the right environment for me?
Yeah.
And so often that ends up being the sort of conversation that I have. And then it's about, and it's not always, stands true to your integrity. I'm very much firm believer in practicality and pragmatism. And I have a client who is a woman of colour, and she was talking about looking for her next senior executive role. She actually got it in the end. But her biggest debate was, do I straighten my hair? Because if I straighten my hair, I'm seen more credibly than if I let it go curly. But at the same time, I know that if I leave my hair curly, I'm representing a whole group of women, and I should be trailblazing. Now, when you hear should or could, that's not you talking, that's feeling pressure from the external environment. And so my job isn't to say, well, you should do this or you should do that. It's to say, what is it you're willing to compromise, or what is it you want? And is this the hill you want to die on? If you want to straighten your hair, straighten your hair. If you don't. But make sure it's driven by your decision-making, not because of other people, what other people are telling you to do.
Amen to that.
Yeah.
Wow. That was incredible. Really, really, really great conversation. Loved it. Really did. But we do have a closing tradition on the podcast where we ask our guest what their preference is when making a cup of tea. So
the hill that I would die on is
this is the no compromise.
This is the no compromise.
This is where the podcast goes.
Yeah. I know, I'm really sorry. The hill that I would die on is...
So if you were to make, and we know you use oat milk, which is great. If you were to make myself or Cal a nice cup of tea, and we didn't have a teapot, how would you make it?
Now, if my nan heard this, she would hang me from the nearest rafters. But I put the tea bag in.
Yes.
I put the water in.
Yes.
Then I add the milk.
Yes.
Oh. Your nan's a good woman.
My nan's a good woman. Yeah. And the reason being is I like my tea like this.
Yes.
And my husband likes his tea like yours.
Yeah.
And I can't get the right colour unless I put the milk in. So I'm I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Team Claire.
I'm Team Claire. I'm sorry, Karen.
You just wrote a lovely post, didn't you?
I did
about,
a post
how we
on
should be
LinkedIn.
accepting of other people's
Yes,
decisions
I loved that
and things.
post. I loved it.
So I'll have to go and have a read of that and find out how I'm going to get over that.
Have I lost all credibility
You
for
have,
you
yeah,
now?
you've got far to go.
I know.
Thursday's
I have.
child,
I've got
far
way
to
far
go.
to go with my tea
The
making.
first go is to make a proper cup of tea. Go back to your nan. Is she still here?
Yeah, she's still here.
There you go. Go back to your class. And there you go. She'll teach you properly.
She will. She would. As long as, but to be fair, as long as it was actually darker than this, I think she'd be happy. But yeah.
That is so true, though. You can get the perfect colour of tea if you keep the tea bag in when you pour the milk in.
You can also, if you're just not heavy-handed.
So on that note, thank you so much,
Close it
Lyann.
down.
It's been an incredible episode. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, it's been a
thank you so
pleasure.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.